only about 40 cents reach a publisher. Now that's a problem, because that's very different to traditional media. When you buy television, most of the money as an advertiser that you put into television actually goes to the television networks, right? There's not that much loss of value. If you have a situation where something like this is happening, where through maybe not assessing the situation properly, not being properly prepared, you think logically programmatic media trading makes sense, and don't get me wrong, it makes sense, and it will get there, and it is the future, and it will not go away. But you have to be prepared for it, and know that at the moment it can happen that about 40 cents get to the publisher of $1. Now, I can give you an example that's quite public. You can follow the current situation in the UK. There's court proceedings between the Guardian newspaper and the digital properties and a technology platform. The basic argument is that the newspaper is saying we are only getting 30% of every dollar. Okay, so maybe the 40 cents here is not that off if there's a public dispute happening at the moment about 30 cents. Now if it's 40 or 50 or 60, the point is it's a lot of loss. You can optimize it, you can work with your agencies to optimize it, but you have to be aware of it, what you can and need to do as a brand to fix that. And there's lots of efforts on the way, I understand it, I'm not disputing it at all, but as a brand you have to worry about that. Now what happens after that? It is with a publisher, you would think it appears in front of an audience. Well, that would be nice, but that doesn't quite happen in digital. Then you have issues like non-human traffic, fraud, we heard this before, is an issue. And then you have viewability issues. So when you then look at those numbers, and again, there's different statistics, people have different opinions about how big the drop-off is, and again, different by client. But now we're talking of your €1, 15 to 20 cents reach a consumer according to the IAB standard, and in this case for 1 second. Now, 1 second is not a lot, and what we don't know yet, and when you do this further, we don't know yet if the consumer actually viewed it, we don't know if it was the right target audience, and we don't know if it was brand safe. So, but the intent is not to scare you, and this may not apply to your particular situation. My point is, you have to understand how this situation looks like for your brand and how much you're actually losing in that value. Now, the logical consequence of this is, we do a lot of, and many companies do that, econometric modeling. Typically what happens is, traditional media is more effective than digital media. But if you look at this chart, it's a no-brainer. Of course it is, because more of your marketing spend in traditional goes directly to an audience. So I think as an industry, and given the importance of digital, we gotta fix this. And this is exactly the point that is being intensively discussed. This is exactly the point that Mark Pritchard was making in his speech at the end of January about the value loss, about the murkiness of the ecosystem, about having too many players, about having too much fraud in the system. And I think as an industry, you've got to come together and be open and honest about this value loss. Again, you may all do much better than that, that's all fine, but have a look at how it looks like in your situation. Good. Part of this value loss is measurement. And I think there's not enough emphasis put on measurement. Measurement is inadequate in many cases. You get different results from different platforms, different results from different publishers. It's quite frustrating, being a client and looking at all these different data points. And we have to fix it. We have to get to standardization. And so we have to work with the publishers and with the platforms to get the metrics that we can all agree and can actually compare it. So this is an example, this was done by Nielsen a while ago, and the point here is, again, it's an extreme example, but the point here is you need to compare apples to apples. So what they did here is, and there are many studies like that, you can pick any, there are tons of studies like that. So what they did is they looked at ESPN, in the US, they looked at broadcasts when it comes to the soccer, the football World Cup, and the statistics that were out there is digital views are much bigger than television views. But the problem is, what do you mean by that? do you mean by digital somebody logged on and off and checked the score and didn't watch? Like, what does it actually mean? When they then broke it down into comparison, and really apples to apples comparison, the statistic looked like this. So it's difficult, no? It's difficult if you're an agency, it's difficult if you're a client, if you don't have any standards on the metrics. And one person is talking about the stat on the left, and the other person is talking about the stat on the right. They're thinking they're talking about the same thing, but the numbers are totally different. So it's a big responsibility for us as an industry to fix that. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of money at play. We want to make sure we're building brands. We want to make sure it actually works. So we have to have the right metrics in place. Another thing I want to draw your attention to is, it is oftentimes forgotten, is when you look further into digital, and this is sort of outside of the big platforms, because many of the big technology platforms are addressing this, actively in terms of measurement and standards. But if you go one step further and you look into different formats, so video is obviously very big, it makes sense. Online video really works in digital. It's more and more investment goes into that compared to banner advertising. It's more engaging. But then there's also in-app advertising. In-app advertising, a lot of times, is not third-party verified. So we don't actually know what the metrics really look like. But then if you look at how much money goes in there, it's quite a lot. So again, it's an example where we jump into advertising opportunities and we don't quite know if they're actually working or if we're looking at the right metrics. So it's not just, I think you need to dig a step deeper. It's not just working with the big technology platforms. You also need to figure out where else advertising is happening, because the spend is quite big. And then the same is performance. You have to make sure that video player formats and online video are actually, from a technology perspective, able to measure and track and be verified. And some formats are actually not. And the problem there is a lot of money goes in there. And now, as brands, as advertisers, as people responsible for big budgets, as agencies, I mean, honestly, we can deal with investment decisions like that as an industry. We can't just put money into place and not knowing if it works. We have so much data in digital to actually see if it's actually working. So again, I think as a single advertiser, as a single agency, you're probably not going to solve that. You really have to come together and try to fix it as an industry. We have to demand the proper standards, to put money into these channels, to put money against those advertising formats. Good. So obviously I didn't want to scare you with all these things, but it's a rallying cry for action. At the same time, so what can you do about those sort of things? How can you go about these things? I think all of you are responsible for big brands. Many of those brands have been built for decades. They have a certain perception in consumers' minds. You want to protect them. And you are the owners and the stewards of those brands. You want to make sure they reach the right audiences. So the basics is make sure it's brand safe. And it's, again, a big difference between publishers. In traditional publishing, if an ad format or an ad appears in the wrong context, in many countries in Europe, probably in Spain, the publisher loses the license. It's as simple as that, right? An advertising appeared inappropriate, the authorities come in, you use your publishing license. Now, digital is not quite at that level. And I also think maybe some of the digital platforms need to rethink their responsibilities and their roles and their context, because you as big brand stewards have invested billions of euros in these brands, and you don't want them to get damaged. And that's why you have to step up and act against that, because you are the stewards of those brands. Now, what can you do about it? Obviously, you're probably all doing this. Start with whitelists. There's lots of conversations about blacklists. The problem with blacklists is you don't know all the sites to put on blacklists. So it's almost easy to start with a whitelist and then incrementally add more things to blacklists. Work with your partners, in the ecosystems, together with the agencies on non-disclosed sellers. On non-disclosed sellers, oftentimes there's the problem. There's clickbait, there's fraud. So maybe you shouldn't use non-disclosed sellers, or understand really who those non-disclosed sellers are to protect your brand. And thirdly, incentives tend to work. So incentives, you can incentivize the trading partners in the ecosystem if they really protect your brand, but you can also have penalties if they don't protect your brand. So I mean, it's sort of like, a lot of these things are not necessarily rocket science, but I think we have to take these things very seriously because it's actually happening. Now, third-party verification. I think that's a critical step forward that the industry needs to take. Because it's personalized, or I want to become the next Uber. That's great, that's perfect. But those companies are focused on data, analytics, consumer insight, personalization. They own all of them. I'm not saying they build everything by themselves, but they own it. Because that's the heart of their business, the consumer experience. And in digital, it's not about banner advertising. It is about building those relationships, building services, building utilities, engaging with videos or what have you. But you got to know your audience, and your data strategy is going to be critical. Okay, as I mentioned at the beginning, things are moving a bit slowly in the digital ecosystem. And you have 4,000 players on the technology side in the US alone. I think it's time to put the foot down, look at your budgets, and tell people that you won't spend with them if they don't start complying to some basic standards. I mean, as advertisers, as agencies, you want to build brands, you have to make sure what you're doing actually works. And the best example, I have a lot of respect for Mark stepping up there, talking to everybody about all the mistakes that P&G has made. And P&G obviously is the world's biggest advertiser, in many respects probably as assumed to be one of the most sophisticated. If Mark steps up and says, I made a lot of mistakes, well, I think it's time for many of us to step up and say, maybe we've all made mistakes and we've all been naive in this, and let's fix it together. Yes, the blaming doesn't help, the hiding doesn't help. Let's go fix the ecosystem because it really matters. Now, last year, a couple of thoughts that we have learned through the process with working with Mark. He's also the chairman of the ANA, in the process of transparency. As you know, I'm here today speaking to you. We are doing this with many advertising organizations around the world, from Australia to the US on a regular basis. This timeline you're probably familiar with. The ANA kicked off the study on media transparency in 2005. The report was then launched in June and July 2016. Subsequently, a lot of things happened in the marketplace, lots of conversations, but also things happen in the marketplace that are quite concerning in terms of measurement. Facebook had to report a couple of hiccups. They're fixing it, but they had to report it. And then the YouTube brand safety issues. So I think these things are top of mind. I think that's why all of you are here. These are really important things to address and need to be addressed very quickly and seriously. Now, what have we focused on with the ANA? What are their recommendations? The first one may be slightly surprising. The first recommendation, the core recommendation of the report to fix the transparency issue is internal governance on the client side. Now, this is a surprise because you may have assumed that it's more like the ecosystem. It isn't. The internal governance process, at least I can speak for the US clients, is broken. The governance processes are focused on the spend that's being made, in particular, the oversight as what's spent with the media agency. So if you spend 100 million on media and you pay your agency 2 million, then your governance process internally at the client is focused on 2 million. Now there's a fundamental flaw in that, because you're actually spending 100. So if you think about advertisers like General Motors, Procter & Gamble, the big pharma advertisers, they spend like billions. Let's say General Motors spends $2 billion in advertising. I think you can build a factory for that, right? $2 billion gets you a car factory. Do you think how much governance that it would take to build a car factory and to get a car factory approved at their board? It's a pretty big process. Lots of people would look at it. The CEO would be involved, the CFO would be involved, the audit committee would be involved, a strategic team would be involved. At the same time, these same companies spend the same amount of money every year on advertising with no corporate oversight. And I think that will change. Because I think that now, going back to these headlines in the Financial Times and the Wall Street Journal, I do think that more and more CEOs wake up and say, what is happening here? I'm supposed to get all this data and what works. I'm spending a lot of money. I can build a factory. And my marketing department spends the same amount of money with no oversight. And they tell me, don't worry, it's working. I think those times are over. And you see it, there's a couple of examples. One of the most prominent examples of recent is probably Unilever. They are starting zero-based budgeting. Okay, now it's different, right? Now you have to justify how much you're spending, why you're spending it. And maybe the budgets are not going up every year. So I think you get prepared for this, because it will come to every market sooner or later, and the sooner you address it internally, what the right governance process is, the better. Because you're not caught, and if you start now, you're still early, but in a few years from now, I think from the Americans, a lot of pressure will come on getting the governance right. I talked about data. Unless you don't want to do relevance and targeting and become a better marketer and have one-on-one relationships, then you don't worry about the data. But if you want to do that, if you want to build commerce online maybe, you got to have the data. So what's your data strategy? So again, the report that we published, people were assuming lots of language around contracts, which we did, but there's a lot of language around just basics of marketing, and become a better marketer, and the oversight. Obviously, contracts, make sure you define your level of transparency that you want to have and enforce the contracts. There's different by client. Not every client is the same. And then when you have a contract that goes back to the principle of trust and control, then you have audit rights. Because if you have a contract without audit rights, the contract is meaningless. And lastly, on the day-to-day relationship that you have between the trading partners and the client, you don't want to talk about contracts. This should be a code of conduct that people have agreed upon, a way of working. One of the things that I was very surprised about, and when you have read the report, is the understanding of the relationship between the agency and the advertiser in the US is fundamentally different. The advertisers are saying in the US, I hired my agency to be my agent. And you need to follow the spirit of the contract. However, the agency community, not everybody, but many, according to the findings of the study, they're saying that we can act as principal and as agent. And we'll follow the letter of the contract, not the spirit of the contract. So the point here is, as an advertiser, you need to define how you want to manage these relationships. There's no right or wrong, you have to define it for yourself. But in the past, there has been quite a bit of misunderstanding in some markets how these relationships work. A couple of success factors that we have seen with clients. Obviously, strong internal champions that push the transparency agenda forward collectively, like obviously very senior support. Like a good example is Mark Pritchard, obviously very senior at P&G pushing this forward. Again, another recommendation that we have made at the time was that clients appoint very senior chief media officers. So even big advertisers in the US that have much bigger budgets than many of you didn't have chief media officers. The media budgets, the media responsibility was too junior in the organization. Again, going back, how can that be? How can you spend hundreds of millions in advertising money, and the mid-level part of the organization is making all these changes? So appoint senior people. If you want to change any relationship, you have to have some leverage. There can be renegotiations about certain the relationship. Obviously with digital, if the contract hasn't changed the last 10 years, maybe review that. And in many cases, and that happened in the US in particular, you may remember it was at the end of 2015, about $40 billion of media spend was at pitch. I wouldn't recommend that. I'm not saying that's a good idea, but it's a consequence of the point one where clients may feel they don't have a leverage, and then they want to create a leverage. So that's then too late. So I think you want to have great relationships with your trading partners, get to these points before it's too late and it goes into a pitch. You need to have trusted partners. It helps through this. They're independent and unbiased in the ecosystem, and you have sound legal advice. It's quite complicated, the ecosystem. It doesn't matter who you make a deal with. If you make a deal as a client with a technology company or with a trading partner, it's complicated. Like your teams on the legal side that are negotiating contracts for labor laws and for procurement of all sorts of products are not experts in media. So you may want to have external counsel on that, so people who are specialists. Good. In summary, very quickly, as I outlined before, let's all admit it's a bit more complicated than it used to be. Maybe we're not all ready for it. That's okay. I think, it's marketing and marketers as a smart community. We can figure it out together. There's lots at stake for the brands. So let's do it together and admit it's more complicated and get over the pain points. Have digital grow up. It's no longer new. So if somebody says, yeah, that's an excuse because digital has only been around for a few years, that's complete nonsense. I mean, Facebook is now 13 years old, digital is probably over 20 years old. It's not that new, you just have to get better organized. There's lots of value at risk, so you can make big impact. So if you can reduce the waste, reduce the fraud, get better visibility, it's easy, you can drive value really fast. So, don't hold back, go drive value. The third point here is, because it's relatively easy to drive value, go do it. In particular, in brand safety, there's simple steps that can ensure a lot of brand safety and can be fixed relatively quickly. The fourth point, as I said, understand your media ecosystem and develop a proper strategy around data, technology vendors, how you want to work in your ecosystem. It's confusing, but you have to have a strategy. And lastly, if all the carrots don't work, you may have to apply some pressure. I was at a client in France yesterday. They were thinking about getting together as an industry in areas they're not competing, so in the same industry, and go start have conversations with the technology platforms, technology providers to demand access to data and third-party verification when it will pull back spend. And I think that we will see more of that, but obviously you have a fantastic forum here with the association, do that on your behalf to make sure the standards are met. Good. With that, thank you for your attention, and if there are any questions, please.